there everybody, my name is Kat Bowser. I'm your resident fantasy therapist. Welcome back to my channel. So this is the week of Christmas. I hope you guys have had a good one. Hence the reason the videos are going up the weekend instead of during the week. So for those of you who have never been here before, I am a licensed therapist. I'm also a writer working on my first 2 novels. One a standalone, one the start of a series. And I like to dig into tropes, the psychology behind characters thinking, the psychology behind world building, all that kind of stuff on my channel, because in my mind, characters are what makes a story. So that's what I like to focus on. So today I have another book review for you guys. And that is for Marion Blackwood's next book in her OnComing Storm series, A Storm of Mist and Thunder. So once again, I was blessed enough to get to be an ARC reviewer for this book. For those of you who have not seen my book reviews before, they are non-spoiler. I won't be telling you guys anything that you can't find out from the back of the book. And I'd like to give you guys what I liked, what I thought needed work, what I thought was unique. And I like to give a psychological realism scale. So what that is essentially I give you guys what issues popped up, like psychologically, whether it be a mental illness, whether it be psychological development, character development, whatever. And I give you guys a realism scale, 0 to 5. 5 I reserve strictly for either true stories or stories inspired by true stories. So usually you won't see more than a 4 on that one. So that being said, let's just jump right into it. Storm of Mist and Thunder by Marion Blackwood. This is book 5 in her series. And like I do with all my videos, I'm just going to be reading you guys from the back cover so you guys don't get any spoilers that you wouldn't get if you weren't looking for the book. So here we go. What would you be prepared to face in order to win? Ambushers, an invading army, your own inner demons? Deep in the mountains, the oncoming storm finally finds the other stormcasters. However, learning to control her powers turns out to be more difficult than she expected. In order to improve, she needs someone to train her, but that comes at a cost. On the other side of the continent, the Star Elves are marching. When they threaten to take over one of the only unoccupied cities left, the oncoming storm gets an offer she can't refuse. Rescue an important advisor, and she will get the Stormcaster teacher she sorely needs. Outnumbered and up against an enemy who will stop at nothing, the oncoming storm and her friends are fighting a losing battle. If they fail, one of the last free cities will fall, and the oncoming storm will lose her chance to master her powers. Can they outsmart the invaders before it's too late? So first of all, what did I like about this book? Well, like with all her books, the characters are just so interesting. And each book she introduces new characters, but they don't overshadow the main characters, but they do play an important part, and she manages to flesh them out without detracting from the plot, which is really hard to do. But each new character she introduces, I always find interesting. I always find fascinating. Even if they're only a one-shot character, you can see that there are levels to them. There's layers. They aren't just, you know, the person that runs the brothel or whatever. And so I really enjoy that about her characters, in that they all feel real, they all feel fleshed out, they all feel like they have their own agenda, even if they only play a very small role. So I appreciate that. The plot I really like because it builds on the other books, but I mean, you could pick up this book and still follow it. It would not have nearly as much impact as if you have not read the series. But I like the fact that you could technically pick up this book and still kind of follow what was going on. That's usually really hard in a series, especially a series that has been going for 5 books now. This is book 5. So I give props for that. I think it's awesome that you're able to create a world where you can add to it, but you don't have to necessarily follow every single book to know what's going on and to enjoy the story. What did I think needed work? This one, okay, I'm gonna do this because this is not my interpretation, but I think a lot of people will get this interpretation. This book has a lot more setup than some of the other books in this series. That's not a bad thing. but it does make you slow down a little bit. Like a lot of the other books, especially I think the last book, you jumped almost right into the action. And I like that her books alternate though, so that you have books like that, but then you have books like this where there's more setup, there is more introduction of new characters, there is more introduction of what the crisis is going to be. And I think that's good in a series, but I know that some people, it kind of throws them for a loop. So that's why I'm listing it here. There is more setup in this book. I don't consider it a flaw though, but I do consider it to be just a fact that it just has more setup. And I think that's okay because it pays off. What do I find unique about this book? So this is going to be weird, but this is something I think I've said for almost all her books, and it's true because it's unique for each book, and so it changes with each book. But there's always a twist of some sort in these books, and it's a twist done correctly, how a twist should be done, in that you don't really see it coming. It takes you by surprise. But then when you go back after the twist is done and you think about it, you go back through the book and you start to see all the little clues that she laid. She's very good at laying clues to the twist that you don't pick up on until the twist happens. I give major props to that because that is so hard to do. But she always manages to do it. So that's something I always find unique about her books. The other thing is just she builds on really the psychology of Storm. Like last book, Storm was really out of her element and she was essentially having to find herself. And in this book, it's more she's figuring out who she is. Last book, she kind of figured out who she wasn't. And so this kind of builds on that, in that what am I and where do I fit kind of idea. And I love it when characters go through emotional development like that, because it doesn't occur overnight. And I love it when it takes a book or two for characters to really kind of discover that for themselves, because I think it's very realistic. So I like that she split it, in that the last book was more about discovering what she was not and where she did not belong, and this one is more figuring out where she does and what are the pros and cons of that. Because I know it's a lot of fun for people to imagine that in fantasy and in books you can find a place you belong and everything is hunky-dory, everything is awesome. But I also think it's more realistic to have a scenario where you're trying to figure out where you belong, and it's more a case of this has more pros than cons, than there are no cons at all. And I really like that approach. So overall, I'd give this book, I believe, 5 out of 5 stars. I love this book. I could not put it down once I got it. I've already ordered the paperback version because I have to have all the paperback versions. Even though I technically have a digital copy of it, I always buy a physical copy because I want to support the author, because I think she needs all the support. When it comes to psychological realism, I've kind of touched on it a little bit, but I love how she is taking her time with the development of Storm's character. You're seeing her go through these events that make her question her psyche and different portions of her psyche, and it takes time for her to really come to grips with what she's realized about herself. And I like that it's taking time. Far too often books kind of rush through this, and I don't think they mean to. It just kind of happens. So I love it when a book takes its time with this, and she's approaching it in a very realistic way, in that, like I said, it kind of starts out with Storm figuring out what she isn't. Hi, Rip. More so than who she is, and then the who she is part comes later. And I just think that's a very smart way to go about it, and I think it makes a lot of psychological sense. So that being said, I'd give it 4 out of 4 for a psychological realism scale. Like I said, I reserve my 5s for true stories or those inspired by true stories. So technically 4 out of 5, but you know, 4 is about the highest I can give it. And I hope hope you guys will check it out. I hope you guys will check out the rest of the books in her series. I will link them below so you guys can see what you're missing if you haven't looked at these before. I do have non-spoiler reviews for all her other books in this series on my channel, so you guys are welcome to check those out. And I hope you guys will give the OnComing Storm series a shot, because it's been a long time since I've fallen in love with a series like this. So thank you guys for chiming in for my video. I hope you guys have had a wonderful holiday. I hope you continue to have a wonderful week. As always, if you have suggestions or comments, feel free to leave them below. I'll get to them as soon as I can. If you want to make sure you don't miss when I upload, make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you'll get notified whenever a new video goes up. Because of the holiday, it's been kind of a scrambled schedule, but should be going back to normal now, which is about twice a week. And until next time, I hope you guys take care. Have a good one.